Okay, welcome to Spin Sisters. I'm Mary Lahammer,
I'm Tara Erickson.
and we are honored.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, this is such an absolute treat. Thank you so much. We have former governor, shocked the world, Jesse Ventura, with us today. We are going to talk about things that are happening, obviously, in Minnesota. We know that the governor has a lot of opinions about this. We're also going to talk about his time, how he shocked the world. I'm sure Mary will talk a little bit about her documentary that she did that was so well done. So, Mary, let's get going.
Yeah, Governor, I want to start with obviously, I think you got your SEAL team hat on and your experience in the military as a Navy SEAL, but also how seriously you took being commander of the National Guard and what's happening right now in Minnesota with the president having troops standing by, the governor having troops standing by, and what we're really looking at with a constitutional crisis perhaps going on with federal and state troops possibly in a showdown. Governor, what do you think is going on right now in this crisis?
Well, first and foremost, let's place the blame where it belongs. Let's place all the blame where it belongs. Our current so-called president, Donald J. Trump, the draft dodger, I like to call him. But he is completely responsible for all of this. All of it.
So, Governor, you are leaning back into the public discourse. Are you interested in running for governor again, running for president again? You showed up at your alma mater at Roosevelt. What are you thinking?
I showed up at Roosevelt High School because they were under attack by the Gestapo. There's no other better way to put it. And here's a question I have. Here's what I got for you, the media. How come you never asked this question? And it's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
Chemical warfare, tear gas and all of that is illegal in war. It is a war crime. And yet we can use it on our own people? So it's against the law. It's against the rules of war to use tear gas and chemical weapons in war. But we can turn around with this so-called governor of South Dakota who wants to nail everybody, the head of the Gestapo.
Well, federal judge has said they can't use it anymore.
Yeah, but it just got overruled.
It got overruled,
right?
Yeah, just got so they can use it again. But the question is this: why is it allowed in the first place? You can't use it at war; it's a war crime, and yet we can use it on our own people.
So, Governor, obviously, I think that the majority of Minnesotans and the majority of Americans agree with you. And if people saw on the streets the tactics that are happening, I think last night with a front page was of a protester on the ground, handcuffed, agents on top of him, and another agent spraying him in the face while he's already subdued, already on the ground, and spraying him in the face from about 3 or 4 inches away. If you were governor right now, how would you be handling this situation? I don't know that another governor has ever been put in this place. Like, how would you handle this right now?
Well, when I spoke to Governor Walz, I gave him my sympathy. I said, not only are you now dealing with this mess created by the president, you also had to deal with the pandemic. In your terms, I said, I wouldn't have wished that on anybody.
And George Floyd.
I wouldn't even wish it onto a Republican.
But what advice did you give him? I know governors are talking to him. What advice are you giving him?
Well, what advice can you... I told him, this is for the soul of America. Now, the governor's worried someone else is going to die, which we all should be. But why should anyone be dying? If it weren't for President Trump, no one would be dying on the streets of Minneapolis. But it is what it is. Now we've got to deal with it. It's a difficult situation. I am one that thinks, let me throw this out on your show and we'll get some headlines. How about since Trump dislikes Minnesota so bad and we're so out of control, let's join Canada. Instead of Canada becoming the 51st state of America and lose their health care, like they said, they would never do that because they'd lose their health care. I'd like to see Minnesota, all of us become Canadians
Secession
and
is the
make
solution.
this part of Canada, because it's obvious Donald Trump don't want us. It's obvious that he's ready to fracture the whole country for his own folly, whatever he is doing.
Well,
And
he's pulling
I
federal
think
funding, right?
well, I think we should petition to get out of the United States and become if they don't want us, I'm sure Canada'd be happy to take us. And then all those Iowans, think of what a mess it'll be when they have to cross an international border to come up here fishing.
So do you, when you
And I'm
make,
serious about this. You're
okay,
laughing.
Okay.
I
No.
think someone seriously should contact Canada and ask them if they're open to this, of them taking Minnesota and leave the United States. I'll tell you why. I fought for my country. I have an honorable discharge. And you know how Donald Trump now has he got that Nobel Prize? I want to do something for him. I want to meet with the president and give him my honorable discharge so that the draft dodging coward can have one now. And he can hold it up, even though it'll have my name on it. He can hold it up and claim he has an honorable discharge. What do you think? You think he'd like that?
I
I mean,
think
if he'd take a Nobel Peace Prize, I'm sure he'd take an honorable discharge, and it's something he could never achieve. He could never get what I have. Think of that.
Well,
Donald
you know him.
Trump, with all his money in the world, cannot get what
Right.
Jesse Ventura has, and that is an honorable discharge from serving his country. And if he wants to challenge me on that, let's put our families up. Let's see who's got a patriotic family. My father had 6 bronze battle stars in World War II. My mother was in North Africa as a nurse fighting Rommel before Normandy. My brother and I are both Vietnam veterans. Has anyone in the Trump family even served? No, to
no, and
my knowledge.
I think what's really interesting is how they're is how his supporters, the mega supporters, constantly have photos of him all beefed up, like looking like he's ready for battle.
We did cover that in the documentary. Jesse Ventura shocked the world. If you've seen the images, we should
Well,
maybe mention. Yeah.
it's utterly ridiculous. This guy is exactly what I called him. He's a draft dodging coward. And here's what he is. And I'm sure even women have met these people. He's the type of guy who, when there's a group of people, he will start the fight. But guess what? He'll hold your coat. He'll start the fight, but he'll hold your coat. You'll be the one doing the fit. I would challenge. I bet you Donald Trump has never even been in an altercation in his entire life. I bet he's never even been in a fight as a kid. He had a silver spoon in his mouth.
But how does the fight end? We have a real fight happening here, and there has to be a way.
I don't know.
You,
With this
you
guy,
know Donald Trump, though. You guys used to be friends. The president, at
no,
some point, this has
we
to
were
end.
we were never friends. We were part of the Reform Party in the time we were searching to become a third element. We were looking for anybody. He was nothing more than a great possibility. Once I got to see what he's about, you notice he wasn't
But
around me
you got
anymore.
to see how he operated. You guys knew how to work media, how to work press, how to work celebrity. You kind of got to see how he operated. Do you have any sense of how the governor, how anybody could work with him or against him or figure out a way out for Minnesota out of this conflict?
I don't think there is. I think the only thing Trump understands is power.
Mm-hmm. So who
So
has
you gotta
power? Is it a CEO or a business leader that has to appeal to him because he respects money and power?
Well, I don't know. The governor needs to stand up to him. And unfortunately, the governor's worried there'll be more loss of life.
Yeah.
But what the governor needs to understand, this is for the soul of America. 250 years ago, there was loss of life too, wasn't there? Unfortunately, that's a reality. And the thing to remember is all of this loss of life goes to one person, Donald Trump, because without his initiative of doing this, no one would be in danger. No one would have been killed. And this wouldn't be happening now if it wasn't for him.
Governor,
So he bears complete responsibility for what has happened and what will happen.
One thing that I think is really important, that I think is giving a lot of people hope right now, there were, I guess now it was over 700 people that showed up to my church, to my Progressive Lutheran Church in Stillwater, Minnesota, for ACLU training on Sunday night. And I mean, the entire place was just filled with community members and religious leaders trying to understand this. And my understanding is that's happening all over. I mean, there were 70 people that showed up in Sudan, Minnesota, up on the Iron Range where I'm from the other night, which is great. Greg Bovino basically said, leader of ICE here in Minnesota, said, this is basically taking longer because I guess Minnesota's a lot more organized. And I just want to know your thoughts on that. Like, I think the world is watching Minnesotans right now, and there's a lot of pride and support for Minnesotans pushing back so much on what's happening.
I agree. He picked the wrong people, I think, to fight with.
Okay.
My first choice would not have been to pick Minnesota to do this, because we Minnesotans, I mean, they elected me.
Yeah.
Well, no, and I don't say that laughingly.
And the Trump administration knows that. Like,
no, I'm aware. Yes,
we are a state of independent thinkers.
Mm-hmm.
We think for ourselves for the most part. We understand, and we have pride in who we are. And for Donald Trump to sit back and pick a fight with us, his consultants gave him the wrong advice, I think, on that one. But and I don't know how this is going to come out. No one does. But I do know. Let me fire this at you. I also don't have sympathy for us, because the last election was a simple election. The people of America had the opportunity to choose the Constitution or the criminal. And what did they do? They chose the criminal. And now now what they're seeing surprises them. Oh, we're shocked and dismayed. This guy take a look at his record. Where are his casinos now? Bankrupt. Where is everything Donald Trump touched? It turns from gold to trash once he's involved with it. Look at his history. The guy is in the Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame. He's never even been in the ring. How can he be a member of the Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame? I've almost resigned from it out of protest because of the fact I know what it takes. And there's guys like Ken Patera who are not in the Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame. And Donald Trump is. See, it's another one of the... Huh?
Yeah, why would he be, Governor? Like, why would the WWE do that?
Because he made millions of dollars providing us with a couple buildings for WrestleMania 5 and 6. And he did some angle once with Vince McMahon where they cut somebody's hair or something. I was long gone by then. That's all he did. He's never been in the ring, and yet he's in the Hall of Fame. And there's other wrestlers. That's a hard business. Do you know how many nights what my record was? I wrestled at one time 63 consecutive nights in a row.
Oh my gosh, that's just hard on a body.
Wait a minute. That's how you earn your way into the Hall of Fame.
Do you know how many matches you
63 nights in a row climbing into that ring.
Governor, do you know how many matches you wrestled? Do you have any idea, ballpark?
I have no idea.
Is it hundreds? Is it thousands overall?
if you had 30 days off a year, that was a lot.
Wow. So
I know you
made,
said, one of the reasons you got into the
wrestled over 300 times a year.
wow. So
That's how you get in the Hall of Fame.
thousands of
Not like
matches,
Donald Trump, another gift. That's why I want to give him my honorable discharge, because it proves what a false he is. You know, here he can now pretend he served in the military. And you know what Donald Trump would be? Anybody that served in the military will understand this story. The first night you get to boot camp, be it Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, it don't matter. The first night, in the middle of the night, you'll have one guy will wake up, he wet the bed, he'll be crying for his mom, he'll go totally ballistic, and in the middle of the night, the authorities will come in and remove this person. Well, you're in boot camp, you never see or hear from him again. I can assure you, if Donald Trump had gone to boot camp, that would have been him. He would have been the guy who wet his bed in the night, screamed for his mom, and got carried out by the authorities.
But Governor, the reality is Trump won. Democrats did not stage a winning campaign. Kamala Harris and Tim Walz did not win, did they?
Let's put the blame.
Okay.
Let's put the blame where it really belongs.
Okay.
Let's put the blame where it really belongs, and that is you two women looking in the mirror.
I'm not a journalist.
No.
What is it?
Looking in the mirror over this fact.
Okay.
You had the opportunity to elect the first woman president, and you blew it. If women would have stuck together and saw this guy for what he is, look at the sexual crimes he's been charged with.
Yeah, 51% of white women.
If women would have
him.
put him up under the scope like they did Barack Obama or someone like that, if the women would have stuck together, we would not have Donald Trump.
So women cannot elect a woman.
And the women could have elected the first female president. That's why I voted for her. I wanted to see the first woman president. We've screwed up enough. Let's see you do it.
So that's a really good segue, Governor, because, I think people need to realize how many phenomenal, capable, competent women you had in your cabinet. Jan Malcolm is like a hero of mine. She's a friend.
And how many other governors went to Jan Malcolm and said, Jan, we need you. Jan, will you continue to serve? I think you tapped Jan Malcolm first, Governor. Should we give you credit for that?
Rest assured, if I come back and run and win, the first person I'll call is Steve Bosacker. My chief of staff.
Yep.
Because the chief of staff is the one that'll organize all this. That's their job. And Bosacker's the best. And so if I were to do it, you could rest assured Steve Bosacker would be the first phone call. And it's interesting because we just spoke not long ago.
Really?
And he's
what did you
coming
talk
back
about?
to.
Are you serious about talking to him?
Well, no. We talked about him returning to Minnesota. He's been out in Washington D.C. for decades.
Okay.
And he's coming back to Minnesota. So I could only say is that the stars are lining up.
Wow. And should we?
The stars are lining up.
No, Bosacker was part of you being the first governor who instituted domestic partner benefits, way ahead of any Democrats doing that at the time.
And what is the first thing the Democrats bargain back? Gay rights. First thing they give back to the Republicans. I always tell the gay people, why are you Democrats? You're their first bargaining chip. You're the first thing that gets sold back to the Republicans to make them, the religious people, happy. And that's a fact of life.
Yeah. And Tara, other women too. You had many women who were cabinet leaders.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. I'm assuming that. Yeah, I wish we'd have gotten a woman president. I mean, the men have screwed it up long enough. It's time for you guys to do that. So we can
so we could blame you all.
Governor, you're looking pretty spry. I mean, you look like you're doing just fine.
I train every day. I'm certainly, in some ways, I'm in a way better shape than I was when I ran the first time, because I'm down to 210 pounds now. I haven't weighed that since I was in the Navy. You know, and when you get past your 70s, you don't want to be 250 pounds no more.
Yeah.
You know, you need to get down to 200, 195, those types of weights. So
when you're
you know,
talking about that, are you training, like lifting weights every day? Like what do you
Cardio.
do? Okay.
Yeah, I train. In fact, I trained before I came here to do this.
Yeah. What are you doing? I love hearing about your workouts. Tell us about it. What cardio are you doing?
Right now I do 40 sets of roughly 8 to 10 repetitions, and I divide my body and train it twice a week. Like Monday was legs and shoulders, Tuesday was chest and triceps, Wednesday was back and biceps. I'll take today off, and then I'll repeat the whole thing again. So I do 3 days in a row, then I take a day off, and then do 3 days in a row again of hitting the entire body and breaking it up that way. And 40 sets, like I'll do 10 sets of presses, 5 sets of incline presses, 5 sets of flies. That'll be the chest. And then 7 sets of press downs, 7 sets of extensions, and 7 sets of tricep kickbacks for 21 sets of triceps for a total of 41 sets. That's the tricep chest workout.
And then back I'll do. Yeah. I should jump in, Governor, because you've always taken your fitness seriously. We should give you a chance to tout your record, because you held records for swimming. Tell us about that.
Well, I wasn't a great swimmer over the fact that I swam in the city of Minneapolis. Did you know we only had 2 swimming pools for 10 schools?
No. Wow.
Yes, we had to share 2 swimming pools. Olson Junior High and Northeast Junior High. I had to ride the bus from Roosevelt to those every day because Minneapolis had no swimming pools.
But you did all right
with it. So we could not compete. We couldn't compete with the suburbs.
Right.
Heck,
but
they had
achieve,
swimming pools in every one of their schools, from grade school, middle school. But what I did, I ended up in swimming. I held 3 Roosevelt High School records. And in District 17, which is the city of Minneapolis, I held 2 district records for being the fastest swimmer ever. And I'm sure they've long since been broken. I'll tell you how bad it is today, Mary.
Yeah.
I picked up my White Bear Lake paper the other day.
And
it had the girls swimming. And in the article, it talked about a new young girl swimmer at White Bear Lake who placed 12th in the state. And I thought, well, that's 12th, though. Why are they writing about her yet? Well, here's why. I looked. Her time was as fast as mine.
Wow.
Wait. And she was in 8th grade.
Oh my God.
She was in 8th grade.
You're not impressed with your times anymore.
She swam in the girls' state meet, and she placed 12th in the state at 8th grade, and her swim was as fast as my record was.
Wow.
And I'm going, holy smokes, the 8th grade girls are beating me now.
Wow.
But I will say this.
Really cared about health and fitness. It's been
I'll say this.
Yeah.
I was a strong enough swimmer, and I thank my old swim coach who's gone, Mr. Toy Jambeck. He made me a strong enough swimmer that I could be a Navy frogman. And you got to be a strong swimmer to be a Navy frogman.
Absolutely.
If you don't believe me, don't ask Donald Trump, because he wouldn't know a thing about it. That's a topic he wouldn't know nothing about.
And that had to set the foundation for your training to become a pro athlete. I mean, yes, right, professional wrestling was performing, but it was also a real physical task.
Oh, yeah, very much so. You know, the going through SEAL training's the hardest thing I ever did. Number one, because what you're doing is real. You're not training for a game. You're
Yeah.
not training to play on Saturday and you might win or lose and you'll be back on practice on Monday. You know, no. What you're training for and what these men are creating in you is good and evil combined, because nobody wants war. And the bad thing is this: if the Navy SEALs get called in, chances are there's going to be fatalities. People are going to die. That's a fact. It's just the way it is now. Are they justifiably dying? Who knows? In the end, who really knows? You
So,
know,
Governor,
I'm so against war now, and I'll tell you why. My mom and dad fought in the, people come up to me and say, thank you for our freedom. I get offended over that when they say that to me. You know why I get offended? Because I don't believe since World War II that we've ever been to war where our freedom's at stake. You're going to tell me we were worried that Ho Chi Minh was going to invade San Francisco? That Ho was going to come over from Vietnam and stick a flag in California and claim it for him? No. Had nothing, give me a break. No war that we've been involved in since World War II has our freedom been at stake. Tell
But
me
it is
one.
now. I'm assuming you believe, like many of us, that it is now, that our freedom is literally on the line at this moment.
Our freedom's on stake from our own government.
Yes.
Yeah. Not from the wars we fought.
Sure.
Not from Vietnam, not from Korea, not from Iraq, not from Afghanistan. All these wars they've put us into and make us send our kids. You know what else ticks me off? And I'll get heat for this, but the Wounded Warrior Fund. You know why that angers me? Because here's the government again pushing it on to us, the private sector, to take care of these wounded veterans. They serve because of the government. Shouldn't the government be taking care of them now? But no, the government pushes it off to the Wounded Warrior Fund. And the private sector is supposed to reach in their wallet again and start supporting. Now, don't get me wrong. I have all the sympathy in the world for these injured men. But it should be the government taking care of them, not them coming and appealing to the private sector. Only $19 a month, 16 cents a day, or 63 cents, whatever it is, to help out these poor soldiers that went and fought for your freedom. No, they didn't. They went and fought because the government sent them there in a foreign country into another folly.
Governor, I want to go back to all of your training. When
Am I passionate or what?
We love it. When you talk about all your detailed training in the military and as a SEAL officer, I'm wondering if you've seen the ICE officers out on the street. And
I wasn't a SEAL officer. I was a SEAL enlisted man.
Yes, but I mean, when we're seeing the
don't
ICE...
say that, Mary, don't say that sacrilege to me, an enlisted man. How dare you call me an officer?
Right, as a SEAL, right.
Here's the answer, Mary. You don't have to sir me. I was an enlisted man. You know why you don't have to sir me? I knew who my parents were.
I get it. Sorry, what I'm saying is
that's an old enlisted man answer to the officer. Don't sir me, I'm an enlisted man. I knew who my parents were.
I totally get it. I had an enlisted parent too. I'm wondering though about the training that you're seeing of the ICE agents out on the street. When you see their training and you think of all of your training,
their training's horrible.
That's what I wondered if you could assess that.
It's all, number one, who would stand in front of a car that would have the suspect still behind the wheel? Who would do that? That's bad training. Number two, and we can go back to, what's his name, Fernando? Remember the kid that got shot with his girlfriend and the kid in the car?
Yep. Yeah, Fernando.
You know how you know it's bad training? Because they'd get laughed out of the SEALs. You know how many rounds we allow for something like that? 2. Anything more than 2, You're gaining fire superiority. You're not shooting in self-defense. Anything more than 2. Why is it these officers need 4 to 5 rounds to kill someone? Because they're untrained on their weapons and they don't hit what they aim at. Obviously. They'd get laughed at. If you took more than 2 rounds in SEAL cadre, you'd get laughed at. When you do quick kill in there, you got 20 targets. You know how many rounds you got to take out? Or excuse me, you have 10 targets. You know how many rounds you're allowed to take out those 10 targets? 20. 2 shots a target.
And would you have different criteria for citizens? How you would deal with a citizen or a protester versus, you know, a true combatant?
Certainly, the thing that bothers me is that they're exercising their First Amendment rights.
Uh-huh.
And again, they're being tear gassed. That's a war crime. If we did that to soldiers of another country, we'd be brought up on war crimes. How come we're allowed to do it to our own people? Somebody ask Noam that. Ask Christy Noam, and then ask her the second question from me. And you know what that is? To Christy Noam. Is there even anyone of color who lives in South Dakota?
Well, there's many indigenous people who live in South Dakota, and
gee, why are they called indigenous? You mean we're the immigrants?
Uh-huh.
You mean Christy Noam is an immigrant? Maybe somebody should ask her for her papers and throw her in the back of a trunk.
Governor, can I ask you a question about
Mary, you got me in all sorts of trouble now. This crap's going to go out and Jesse's going to be and I won't have any quiet in my life anymore.
Just don't answer the phone.
Somebody's got to speak up, though.
What do when Citizens United happened, I was lobbying. I worked mostly in healthcare, mostly Medicaid and vulnerable populations. But I remember when Citizens United passed, I just said, oh God, this is going to get really, really bad. And it was within a few years, things that should have been bipartisan, things we could pass maybe in the Senate, 67-0. We couldn't even get hearings in the House. And I want to know your take on essentially allowing billionaires to buy elections. I mean, what's your take on this?
Unfortunately, we have a Supreme Court who made a decision that made bribery legal in the political arena. Now, if you bribe someone in the private sector, what happens? You go to jail
for extortion.
But in the political arena, it's the norm. And when they made that ruling that money is free speech, I said to people around me, this could be the end of America. That decision, where they now made legalized bribery the status quo. So if you're a politician running today, all you do is look for your bribery money to get rich. And it's all out there. You can take it legally. I don't know why they allow, Well, then again, let's remember our illustrious president put 3 liars on the Supreme Court. Because during the election or the nominating process, imagine this. If you were in the private sector and you lied over something very powerful on your job application, and they found out 30 days later that you had lied, what would happen to you in the private sector?
You would be fired.
You're gone.
You'd be terminated. You'd be fired. Yet these 3 Supreme Court justices all lied when they were were all asked, will you overturn Roe v. Wade? All 3 of them said no. And the first thing they did within 30, 60 days, whatever it was overturn it. Well, they lied. Now we're stuck with 3 known blatant liars on the Supreme Court, put there by Donald Trump. And I say back to America, what do you expect? You elected him. He's a criminal to begin with. He's a convicted felon. How is he even allowed to run?
Governor, we've talked about the court of law. Have we lost our balance of power now because the U.S. Supreme Court cannot hold
I don't
the
know.
other branches accountable anymore?
They seem like a rubber stamp for him. Now, I heard the latest rulings, they might go against him. Gee, that would be refreshing, wouldn't it?
But what power do they have if he defies the court?
Well, I'll tell you this. Do you want to know what he's going to try to do? And maybe I'll beat him to the punch here, but I don't think so. I think that at some point, he's already threatened, and they said the White House had to back on it, say it was a joke.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing Donald Trump says is joking. Don't believe that for a minute. When he says there, no, I'm talking about stopping elections.
Yeah.
Stopping elections.
You don't think it's a
Here's
joke?
what I think's going to happen. 4 years from now, when Trump allegedly has to leave, he's not gonna, because he's gonna say the Constitution means
consecutive.
Consecutive. And since he didn't have consecutive terms, he should be allowed another one.
You don't think he's talking about no election in the midterm?
And the Supreme Court, with his liars, are going to back him. They're going to. That's what I predict is going to happen.
So
Trump will run for a third term, and the Supreme Court will say he can, because they weren't in a row. They'll say, well, we don't know exactly what the founding fathers meant. They meant in a row. You can't do more than 2 in a row. So you watch. They're going to rule in Trump's favor. And, well, I'll put a caveat there.
Okay.
If Trump is still alive, he'll run again.
You don't think he'll make it?
And I don't mean that he'll be assassinated. I mean, his eating habits, and, I like to refer to him as Donald Rump.
Governor, we've been talking to all the former governors through this, and I will tell you, Governor Pawlenty said the real crisis, and he thinks the constitutional crisis happens when the president does not listen to the courts. He says that's when things are broken, and that's a definition of a constitutional crisis. You think that's when things break as well?
Well, I think that shows it's already happened.
Okay, you think we're already there? We're already at constitutional crisis?
No. If it gets to that, it's too late.
Okay.
It's too late.
Okay, let me tell you
If it gets to there, it is too late. There is nothing. Then it is. Yeah, he's correct there, but you're never going to stop it at that point. If it gets to that point, it's too late.
So that's dark. Let me tell you something light and nice. We just finished talking to Governor Carlson, and he had the utmost praise for you. He talked about when he handed the keys of the office off to you, he talked about your incredible cabinet, your wonderful management of government, how you were an extraordinary governor. I mean, Tara, can you summarize the praise that Governor Carlson, how similarly he sees your governance? He could not have been more glowing about what a strong governor you ended up being.
Well, I take that as a great honor to have Governor Carlson say that about me. I did tease him. I remember the day I walked in, and I looked at him and I said, well, you're responsible for this. Oh my, and he looked at me like, what do you mean I am? I said, well, when I was mayor of Brooklyn Park, Governor Carlson had me come to the State of the State address, and he acknowledged me for the job I was doing in Brooklyn Park with crime.
I didn't remember that. I did not know that.
Oh yes. He brought me to the State of the State and had me stand up and talked about the job I was doing as mayor of Brooklyn Park against crime. And then we had a reception at the governor's residence. Well, I was at the governor's residence, and here's what I told the governor. Well, the governors came up to me, and he said, you have got to stay in politics. We need you. We need you in politics. Well, later when I won governor and I got in the office and it was that day, I looked at him and said, well, Governor, you're responsible for this. And he looked at me like, what? I said, well, and I refreshed his memory. I said, you're the one that told me to stay in politics, that I was needed and that I was da-da-da-da. So I said, you're as responsible as anyone.
And
that I'm walking
I
into
was
this
there that
office
day.
today.
We know he was not so sure about it when he was handing the keys to you. I mean, truth be told, he was a little skeptical, but boy, today, I mean, Tara, wasn't he just gushing?
He
He was
did.
talking about how your viewpoints were the same on virtually every issue.
Maybe Governor Carlson's got the drift and wants me to run.
We were talking about competence and obviously the fact that I think a lot of folks believe
How old is the governor now?
91.
91.
Is he 91?
He's
91.
doing wonderfully.
Is he doing okay?
Great. Sharp as a tack. I mean, he put on a master class in governance today with us.
Why don't he run with me?
91.
And he's a resident of Florida. There's that.
Yeah, we were talking about.
If you talk to him, tell him, come on back. We'll run together and we'll take the state back to normalcy.
Yeah. But he talked about, gay rights and, he lowered taxes, but also just what a progressive he was and that he was pro-choice. He's the last pro-choice Republican to win in Minnesota statewide.
Well, you know what else he deserves credit for? He actually appropriated not enough, but he appropriated a small amount of money that allowed me to do light rail.
Oh, wow. Wow.
The first money for light rail came from Governor Carlson, a Republican.
Wow.
Can I ask you about that?
It wasn't enough to do the job, by no means, but it allowed the crack in the armor.
Yeah, no, that's a huge part of your legacy. Yeah.
I was just going to say, is that what you're most proud of is the Metro line? Like, is that one of your biggest accomplishments that you think?
Well, I'm proud that I started the light rail of mass transit in Minnesota, because those people that believe somehow Minnesota will get along without it are crazy. There's no metropolitan area in the entire country that doesn't have mass transit. You got to have it to compete. And it's not there to be a moneymaker. See, that's where Republicans get it wrong. It ain't going to make money, but not directly, but it'll make money through development. It'll make money through getting people to jobs. It'll make money through the long term. You won't see it black and white, but you'll see the results of what it does. And Minnesota needed that. I used to work in Atlanta. I used to jump on the rail to go to the TBS. It would cost me $1, and I'd beat all the cabs. I'd beat everything there. That's what inspired me about light rail, was when I worked in Atlanta and I saw theirs. And I'd go by these big traffic jams to the airport on the rail.
Yeah.
Governor, I know we talked about, you're concerned about the courts, and I know Governor Carlson took his judicial appointments really seriously, and you created the nonpartisan judicial appointment process and appointed more than 70 judges. And I know Governor Carlson took that seriously. It's a huge legacy for any governor, that power of appointment.
Well, the judges are going to live way beyond you. Your 4 years or 8 years in office, whatever it might be, are going to come and go. But generally, you're going to name a judge who's probably has enough experience that the person's in their 40s and 50s already. So when you name a judge, you realize you're naming someone for a 20 to 30-year post. They're going to be doing the job for 20 years or better. And so I'm very proud of the judges, because mine was totally nonpartisan. In fact, I didn't know one judge before they came into my office. I never appointed friends, I didn't have any in the judicial, and so, and the fun part was, and I'll let you in on it, every judicial candidate, I would ask them one question, the same. You know what that question was? I would say, okay, you're the judge. It is a civil trial, not criminal. It's a civil trial. And you're up on the bench and you think the plaintiff's lawyer is doing a horrible, horrible job. On the bench, what do? You're the judge, the plaintiff's lawyer, civil trial, plaintiff's lawyer's doing a horrible job.
What was a good answer? Yeah.
Well, the correct answer, and if they answered anything else, they lost. They weren't getting appointed. You know what the correct answer is? You do nothing.
Oh.
The reason is it's civil. You hire your own lawyer.
Okay.
If that person hired a lousy lawyer, it's not the judge who has to make that right. Now, the judge may pull him into conference and say, excuse me, what the hell are you doing? You know, that could happen. But truthfully, the judge does not. Now, a criminal case, different.
Okay.
Because there you've got someone's freedom at stake. So if the judge probably would interact and take more. But in a civil case, do nothing. You hire your own lawyer.
And
so
you know about the courts. You've had
any judge that would
Yeah.
look at me and say, well, it's a civil case. I do nothing. Boom.
Wow.
If they intervened, they were off the list. That was
And
the
I didn't know
question.
that. Are you the governor? Did you set up that nonpartisan process? I wasn't aware
Yeah,
of
I
that.
created all that.
Yeah,
The whole board.
I
Huge
didn't
legacy.
remember that.
I did that because I had a few good lawyer friends who were nonpartisan. They knew a few people. I put the board together because I wanted lawyers to tell me, qualified, good lawyers to tell me who belongs on the bench. They'll tell you.
Yep.
If they're a good lawyer and they've been in court, believe me, they'll let you know if somebody's good or not.
There's somebody who works at the Capitol who worked on that, who recently told me while I was working on the documentary, who came to me and said, Governor Ventura took that process so seriously. You need to know how much he leaned into that and how much he cared. And they came and whispered that to me while I was working on the documentary. And that mattered.
Well, you know why? That's your legacy. Who wouldn't take that serious? If that's going to live beyond your time there, you better take it seriously. I would think so. You know,
and that person also works
besides, judges are so important.
So important.
You have to take it seriously. Look how important a judge is.
Absolutely.
A judge affects some individual's entire life. So you need judges that are competent, you need judges that are fair, and you need judges, most of all, that know the law. Because they're dealing in a one-on-one thing with people. And you may have someone's freedom at stake, someone's fortune is at stake, someone's reputation, all of these things. And a judge is the only place a citizen can go to expect fair, lack of the pun, judgment. That's why judges are so very, very important to me.
Governor, I want to bring you back to 98. I was in college going to school for journalism back then, and I went to St. Cloud State for TV journalism, and I was the news director of our TV station up there. And you came and you were giving a speech out in our plaza area. And I remember you said something about like pulling yourself up by your bootstraps, but there were thousands of students there, right, that day. And we had TV cameras set up all over. And everybody is just Jesse. And you were talking about, you go register to vote, you go do it now. There were people there registering, folks. And I looked at my professor and I said, oh my God, he's going to win. And he was like, do you think so? And I said, absolutely. I said, he's going to win. So there I was, election night, still in college at Mexican Village, waiting tables, and it, came up. And then 2 years later, I'm in the Capitol Press Corps. What I think is you really obviously brought youth into this. And
Well, let me tell you why.
yeah,
They are an entire, when I ran, I recognized immediately they are an entire massive voting bloc who's ignored.
yep,
They're ignored. And why? Why are they ignored? Because the adults, using that term, we'll call the students the children. The adults don't believe the children will vote.
mm-hmm.
So why pay attention to them? Because traditionally they didn't.
Yep.
I'll give you a couple backstories. When I started to run, my team came forward and said, "You got to quit coaching." I said, "No, I'm not quitting coaching."
You were coaching high school football at the time,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
Yeah. I said, "I'm not quitting coaching. I made a commitment to those young men. I'm not running off on them now." I said, "I'll run and I'll coach too. Can be done." And they said, "But we need you Friday nights. You got to go out. You got to da-da-da." You know what I said to them on that one? I said, "Look, I'm coaching at Champlain Park." I said, "We're part of the toughest conference in the state of Minnesota. Champlain Park, Anoka, Stillwater, Blaine. You don't get a night off in football in that conference. Every game you can get beat because that's how good every team is." And I said, "And they draw. I'm in front of 8 to 10,000 people every Friday night coaching football." I turned to my people. I said, "Are you going to put me in front of 8 to 10,000 people every Friday night?" "Well, no." I said, "Then I'm going to keep coaching football because I'm in front of 8,000 people every Friday night." And you know how I knew I was going to win? The game before the election, we're playing Coon Rapids. They're our rival from right across the river. We're in their stadium. We're the visitor. They're the home team. We get out there before the game starts, and on the Coon Rapids side, they unveil one of them big, long things up there, says, "Go, Jesse, go." Now, this is from the rival high school. We're there to beat their ass. You know? And we had a pretty good team that year.
Wow.
But I mean, we're there to beat them.
Wow.
And that's when I turned to my kids. I said, "I'm going to win, guys."
Wow.
When I saw the rival team fans, "Go, Jesse, go," before the
Governor, do you
game
remember
started.
what you also had to do that Friday night? Do you remember what event there was on television?
I don't know.
Almanac.
was
You
it?
had to do the
Almanac.
final debate of the race for governor, statewide
Oh, yeah,
TV
because I
Almanac.
showed up dressed like a coach.
Yes, and I remember the
And
visual.
I get this, I got criticized for it.
Right, because you had Humphrey, right, and Coleman in their suits, in their very traditional suits, and you come onto the set and you are in tennis shoes and jeans, and you say, "Sorry, I'm not dressed up, guys, but I got to go coach a high school football game." And it was just this visual that nobody had ever seen before, a candidate for governor not in a suit, and it shocked the world that here was somebody not debating in a suit. And
Well,
by the way, it worked.
Getting back to the kids again, I then told, you'll love this, I told my staff, I want to get booked to every college campus.
Yep.
And they said to me, "They don't vote. Why do you want to go there?" And I looked at them. You know what I said to them? I said, "Yeah, they don't vote, but those kids have never had Jesse the Body to vote for." I said, "They're wrestling fans." I said, "I guarantee you I'll inspire them to vote." And every college I went to, bar none, kids were hanging from the rafters.
They were
packed. And I chewed them out. I said,
did.
"You know why nobody pays attention to you? Because you don't vote. You don't give them their job. If they have to be dependent on you to get their job, they're going to pay attention to you. And the only way that happens is for you to get out and vote.
Yep.
Well, I remember after I won the election, big headline in the Minneapolis paper, the subheadline said, "Campaign brings out throngs of young voters."
Yep. And that's why you kept
It
saying
was,
the polls
it
were
was the
wrong,
kids
remember?
who put me over the top.
Yep, because you
Yep.
kept saying you're not polling
They were
voters as
definitely
usual.
the 3% that won the election for me. Definitely. Because normally they probably would not have voted.
So, Governor, I'm assuming that our political process is just, oh my goodness. I haven't gone to precinct caucuses in a long time, and I will be going on February 3rd this year. Is there some type of structure that you think of that we should be doing, and maybe just I know that Alaska, it doesn't matter if you're Democrat, Republican, whatever party you are, the top 4 vote getters in a primary move to the top. It could be all Republicans, it could be all Democrats, it could be independent. Are there things that you think about in our structure of, political teams that you think would be a much better route for us?
Well, I guess it's so simple that it's like climbing Mount Everest.
Okay, and
The
what is
answer's
that?
simple. The answer's simple. I don't know if it could ever be done, but the money's got to be removed.
Yep.
The money has to be removed.
Mhm.
And the other thing is this, as my good friend Ralph Nader used to always say it, we have to break the two-party dictatorship.
Mhm.
Because we're a country that 2 parties does not represent everyone. We're
Yeah.
too diverse. There's too many viewpoints. And I feel that a lot of viewpoints are not being represented and never have been by the Democrats and Republicans. I mean, I'll give you an example. And then we've got to get rid of hypocrisy. Here's a great example where I can jump all over the Democrats for a change.
Mhm.
All right, I bought an electric truck. Doing the right thing, right? Green. That's what the Democrats tell me to do. Do you know how the Democrats rewarded me?
I'm assuming you did not qualify for the tax break.
No, I have to pay $400 for an electric fee because I don't buy gas. Because I'm not polluting, I have to pay a $400 fee to license my electric vehicle.
Okay.
And you know what it's for? Because I'm not buying gas and contributing to the gas tax that fixes the roads. Fine. Raise the gas tax to get more people to drive electric to clean the air. If these people don't realize something, air is the most important thing there is. And if we poison what we're breathing, life ends. And so what they're doing, they're penalizing the people who are trying to do the right thing, like me, who buy electric, and then they penalize me for $400 just to license my pickup truck. I have to pay that extra. A gas person doesn't have to. And it's because I don't buy gas. How do you think they fix the roads? With the gas tax. Well, raise the gas tax. That'll force more people to go electric. Then you'll have to find another source, won't you? But
Governor,
you'll clean the air up.
Governor, do you think the appetite is there? Because I know you kind of went viral by showing up at Roosevelt High School, and we heard so many people say, we're ready, we're interested. Is there another way, another path, another party, another person? Is the time right now?
What, to win in Minnesota?
For a third party, for another person.
Well, I'll tell you this. I think that if I run, I'll win. And I say that not bragging, because I say that really out of fear. Because everywhere I go, bar none, the grocery store, the post office, you name it, everywhere I go, people are coming up to me and begging me to run again. See, they know I only did one term, so I'm kind of owed a second one, don't you think?
There's no
Everybody
term limit,
seems,
but yeah.
well, everybody seems to do, everyone
Yeah,
seems
two
to
is
think
the
two.
practice. Yeah.
And I didn't achieve the greatest thing I wanted. You know what my biggest failure was? Well, I wanted to get, and it would have required me for certain to run maybe 2 or a third time to do it. I still am a fan of unicameral. Getting rid of one of these houses. You don't need them. All they do is cause special sessions. They're time consuming. They lack accountability.
I know,
See,
but the legislature's never going to vote themselves away. That's the reality.
They will if the people demand it, with a governor who will stand by them. All I'm asking for them is to have the courage to put it on the ballot.
Yeah.
I'm not saying to get rid of it.
Yeah.
I'm saying put it on a ballot initiative. And then let the unicameral people educate the public, and let the bicameral people educate the public, and we'll let the public vote. And the public then chooses the government they desire. Isn't that America? Isn't that supposed to be what America is?
Well, it's really interesting. There's, lawmakers in Missouri, when Missouri voters said, we do not want abortion banned, and it went on the ballot. They're still putting in laws in place to overturn what the people voted on.
Well, it's, with unicam. See, here's how they can hide. When you have 2 houses, I can be in one house and have a buddy in the other one, and he can say, hey, you can go ahead and vote for this thing and look good because we're going to kill it in committee in our house. And they'll tell you, oh, that doesn't go on. Do they really think I'm that naive? I was told that. Oh, that doesn't happen.
Right.
But that's how it works. It breeds where it's not open. You got people taking fraudulent votes because they know it'll get killed in the other house, so they can look good on their side, knowing full well it's not going to reach the floor in the other house. But if you and you also run this, an initial bill may be good, and then you get 3 amendments to it that are awful. Well, that's done in committee. Then you're left with, what do I do? Do I vote for the initial good bill, allowing these 3 lousy amendments to happen? Or do I vote against the good bill to stop the amendments? In unicameral, it has to go to a full vote of the body to put any amendment onto a bill. That's called accountability. That way the whole body votes to amend that bill. Then you have accountability. Who voted yes? Who voted no?
I think it's interesting that
that's what they don't want. The career politician does not want accountability.
I think it's really interesting that you're talking about accountability, because those of us who spent, and I no longer lobby, I quit that 3 years ago because it's so toxic up there. But there has really not been a process for end of session negotiations, conference committees in the public for well over a decade.
Yeah.
And so these bills are not, everything is being done behind closed doors. Nobody knows what the bills are going to come out, what the agreement is until it's in front of you. And it used to be, they would pass a lot more bills off the floor as standalones. And honestly, everything is going into these one big massive bills, omnibus bills. And so the process has really, and it doesn't matter if it's Democrats or Republicans who are in charge, it has been happening under both of them. Just the process has failed.
Why do you think we need more choices than the Dems and Repubs? They're, as much as they tell you they dislike each other, they're in bed together. They're like that 30-year marriage where they don't get along at all. But they're still married, aren't they?
That's why you're fun to talk to again, Governor, and it's so fun to see you leaning back in.
By the way, I want to
public
brag to
life.
you. The First Lady and I celebrated our 50th wedding anniversary this summer.
Oh, congratulations,
wow.
Governor.
And we
That's
did it very
amazing.
quietly with no
Oh.
hoopla, no nothing.
That's
that's
amazing.
We
I
got
love
each
that.
other. That's all that matters. And yeah, we celebrated our 50th anniversary together. And, here's where we're at today. And
Beautiful.
she's actually
Congratulations.
encouraging me to run.
Oh, wow. Okay, that might
Oh.
be the biggest news you made in this whole thing.
Wow.
I love that.
She wants me to go. My son's shaking his head.
Yeah,
no.
she is. I love that. I don't know if Tyrell told you this, but when we had the movie premiere of Jesse Ventura Shocks the World, what he said and what I really wanted to be part of that. Afterwards, he came up and told the audience, that's a love story.
Mm-hmm. He did.
He did, because so much of what I got to see, because you let me in and showed me the real, true motivation behind you, is how much you loved your family and how
Yep.
much of your frustration and anger that the public saw was you protecting and loving your family.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And in fact, I would tell you this. After my first 4 years, if I come back now, I'm way more savvy now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a little older. I've been
Yep.
there, done that. Do you know what I would do now? I wouldn't watch one TV show or read one newspaper the entire 4 years.
Wow. Really?
Yeah, you know why?
No.
I shouldn't give these secrets away, but what the hell? Here's why. That way, when the media comes up to you and asks you about something,
Yeah.
you got plausible denial. You ain't read it. I know nothing about that.
Yeah.
Shrug it
That's what
off
people
and
do in
go on.
DC. They say it all the time. Oh, I can't comment because I haven't seen that. That's the new line in DC.
And if you're
they do it all
not
the
watching
time.
the news, and if you're not reading the paper, when they ask you a question that came on the news or the paper, you're not lying. I don't know a thing about that, so I'd rather not comment. I don't know anything about it.
Wow. Well, Governor, this has been amazing.
See, the problem was
Such a
my
pleasure.
first term, I read the paper too much and I watched the news too much.
Yep.
I learned from that. Do what you're going to do and don't even pay attention to the media. Because why? The media is going to do what they're going to do.
Yeah.
Governor, some of our jackal badges, mine was everybody was stolen. Not everybody's, but many of them were stolen. Barry has hers.
Yes.
But ours from the Care 11 office were stolen. And there were people, and there were other ones in the Capitol Press Corps, because before the doors were just open, people could walk through. But they were buying them. People in Japan were buying them.
Oh, my photographer was offered
and they're
$300.
probably worth a fortune today. If you got one, they're probably worth, who knows, $1,000 if you got one.
In
I
my
don't know.
scrapbook safely. I
still have my
used it
jackal
in the documentary. Yep.
Yeah. Well, I know that we have taken more of your time, and the one thing before we kind of hit record earlier, you were talking, about the environment, and obviously it is very important to you. You were talking about the ocean. I just want to get your reaction to the bill that passed the U.S. House yesterday that opens up the Boundary Waters Canoe Area, the BWCA, to sulfide mining. And I just wanted your take on that.
Well, my take on that is this. If we as a society and we as a people don't wake up to the damage that we're causing this planet, and if we don't wait, they've opened up the boundary waters now, so they're going to ruin it. Well, that's Donald Trump. That's what he wants to do to Greenland too. And I'll talk about the Baja for a moment. When I was down there, and I just lived there in the winter, when I first got there over 15 years ago, 20 years ago now, almost 25, I guess, it was so abundant with fish and underwater life. It was a dream. Jacques Cousteau or whatever, parked the Calypso, his boat there for like 2 years. said this is paradise. Yeah, he did that in Cabo Pulmo, which was 10 miles up the road from me, Cabo Pulmo. And the last time I went down there, when I first got there, every morning you'd see 20 to 25 of the Mexican little fishing boats go out. 20 years later, when my wife and I walked the beach for the last time, we walked on a beach that had nothing on it. There was no shells. There were no dead fish. It was a barren beach that used to be covered in shells and dead fish. And the reason I say that is because of this. Something has to be alive in the ocean for it to die to wash up on the beach. If there's nothing alive in the ocean, then nothing is going to wash up on the beach. There is now nothing hardly alive in the ocean down in the Baja that's washing up on the beach. And this used to be one of the prime fishing. John Wayne used to go there. That's how unique it was down there. We're destroying it. Excuse me. And people need to understand a simple thing. If the ocean dies, we die. And that ain't negotiable. You're not going to sit down with Donald Trump and do the art of the deal and somehow get your way out of it. If the oceans die, we die. We're killing them. This president has no care, doesn't care at one iota about the environment. You've heard him, drill, 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 put the pollution in the air. He doesn't care. Well, I really should join him in that. You know why? I don't have any grandchildren, and I'm not going to have none. So in light of the fact that I will not have any grandchildren, why should I worry about it then? Why am I worrying about it when none of my offspring will be around to see the devastation when it happens? Why am I upset over it?
I think you care about society, Governor.
I think so too.
Yeah.
And if you would like to whip my now 14-year-old into shape, he's something right now.
What's the matter with your 14-year-old?
He's a little lippy right now. So he's a basketball player for Stillwater. So if you want to hang out with a kid and whip him into shape, you just let us know.
All right, I'll do that. But why is he lippy over what?
Oh,
what's he lipping off over?
He's just 14 and, pushing buttons. It is what it is.
Well, you got to remember at 14 and 15, you know everything.
Yeah. Yep.
Yep. you need to think back at when you were that age. At 14 and 15, you don't need to be told nothing.
I think
you know it all.
I was a lippy Iron Range girl flying around on a dirt bike.
There you go. Well, like I said, I'll never forget when they asked me about the IRRB, and I said, "What is it?" And I got a standing ovation and applause because they knew I wasn't then subjected to the politics of it. I couldn't believe that the Iron Range, I guess they did it under Rudy, could manage to get their own budget out of the Minnesota budget that we're not responsible for. They are. Yeah. How the hell did they get away with doing something like that? That's the question I pose.
Oh, the Range had a lot of power back in the day.
Have you been to Hibbing High School?
What?
Have you seen it?
For what?
Mining,
you mean everybody needed iron ore that much?
Well,
I didn't realize there was a lot of hippies up on the range. I don't know.
It is never boring. It's always interesting. We love keeping an eye on you and catching up with you. We can't.
And if you end up wanting to announce anything, please let Mary know.
Well, the good thing about that is, the good thing about the governor thing, I'll still test the waters. I'm not saying yes or no.
Okay. Look at Tyrell is really struggling right now.
The good thing about it is that I don't have to decide till June.
There you go.
That's when you officially go down and put the money down, and I need to get a running mate because I don't think May would want to do it again.
Right,
You
right.
know,
And ballot access is a
I
different
haven't
prospect.
consulted with her, which I would. You know, I would consult with her before I did any move like that. But I don't think May'd have any interest now. She's very comfortable. She lost her husband, and you know, she's very comfortable in what she's doing. And besides, I'm getting up there. I got to find somebody young and virile to run with me.
There you
You're
go,
doing all
baby
right.
Tyrell.
No. We don't want to make it seem like it's a family thing at all.
No
But
monarchy.
no, there's people out there, you know, you know. Should
You want
I,
a
All
woman
right.
on the ticket, I'm guessing.
I suppose I should keep quiet, huh, Ty? And that's Ty's giving me a thumbs up. Because see, I'm already talking to somebody.
Okay.
Really?
Oh,
You know, but
see?
I'll
Little
wait.
more coming out.
I will give this person the benefit of the doubt, although knowing this person wouldn't care if I did or not.
Wow. Okay, this sounds
No,
serious.
he's got that. This person has that type of personality.
Okay.
Personality.
All
Pretty
right.
outgoing and all that, and this person likes to stir it up like I do.
Wow.
So
Governor,
can you
it is
imagine?
never boring. Never
Never.
Well,
boring.
let me
Always
ask
fun
you
to stay
two
in touch.
something.
All
Anyway,
right,
my
well, we
son's
have to
giving me
let
the
you
wind
go.
up.
We
Yeah.
have
See,
taken so much of
he
your
always
time.
has to step in when I'm having fun. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Governor.
That he steps in and sends me home. You know, now go home. You're done having fun. Go home now.
Thank you so much.
Anyway, though, anyway,
And thanks
Mary,
to
I'll say,
Tyrell for making
yeah,
this happen.
and on behalf of the First Lady, I'll tell her hello.
Please do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Send her
and
best.
because she's sitting at home right now with Boss.
Thank you so much. Happy anniversary. Congrats on that.
You all take care, and
Thank you so much.
I guess I'll never see this because do you know I still haven't owned a cell phone?
Wow.
Well, I mean, you have a computer. You can listen to podcasts on computers too.
No, I don't.
No?
I
Oh.
don't do that. I don't do cell phone. I don't do
Yep.
computer.
Ty
I don't
does
do
it all.
nothing.
Yep.
Got it. Okay.
I sent one email, and you know where I did that? When I was teaching at Harvard. The kids out there helped me. They sat down with me and they helped me send an email. And I sent it to another kid at school, and I wrote on the email, "This is the first email Governor Jesse Ventura's ever sent. Do with it as you see fit." I'll bet the kid still got it.
That's amazing. That's
I'll bet he
amazing.
still got it.
You can't make it up. Amazing.
Oh my gosh. All right.
is the
Thank
best
you so
time.
much, Governor.
Thank you,
Okay, we'll
Governor.
see you later.
Awesome.
Okay.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.